Hello and welcome to the programme. 15 British servicemen captured by an Iranian coastal patrol are said to have confessed to straying into Iranian territory. That's the claim from an Iranian official as diplomatic pressure to have them freed intensifies.
They are reported to be on their way to the capital Tehran for further questioning. But the European Union has now joined the call for their release. In a moment, we'll hear from our Tehran correspondent Ali-Reza Ranahi. But first, here's what the Iranian military have been saying.
The British Marines who were arrested by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard have confessed to being in Iranian territorial waters. British forces have violated Iran's waters before. This was during the occupation of Iraq. We have warned them, but they didn't pay attention. They should know that Iran is strong enough to defend itself.
Well, earlier on, my colleague Jane Dutton asked our Tehran correspondent Ali-Reza Ranahi if there's any proof that British soldiers have actually confessed.
What we know and what we can refer to is Mr. Afshar, the military official that you just showed, who has said they have confessed to this, and he has said that we have proof. Iran has proof that the British forces have knowingly entered Iran's territorial waters. And that's all we know at this moment. We don't know the contents of the confessions. We don't know if there has been a lot of interrogation going on. What we know is that interrogations or investigations, as the Iranian government wants to put it, is underway at this moment.
And Ali Reza, any idea how long this can go on for?
We do not have any idea on this, but the issue is Iranian government must have calculated very well the ratio between the cost and benefit of such measures. They know very well that such acts of arresting a few foreign soldiers is more costly than beneficial at this moment. It might be a show of force, a show of Iranian forces being vigilant over the borders, and but at the same time it may cost Iran a lot in raising the tension between Iran and a permanent member of the UN Security Council. At the same time, Iran's case is being voted against for tougher sanctions in the UN Security Council. So what Iran doesn't really want is more trouble with Britain. Preferably, they would like to solve the issue just like another issue in 2004. The same nature was solved within 3 days.
And there's about to be a new focus on Iran from the United Nations. The Security Council is due to vote on new sanctions aimed at pressuring Iran to suspend uranium enrichment. But Iran's President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad won't be there. He's cancelled a trip to New York to address the Council. Iranian officials are blaming US delays on issuing visas for the delegation. The UN resolution is expected to include a ban on Iranian arms exports and to freeze the assets of those involved in its nuclear projects.
A judge from Pakistan's tiny Hindu minority has been sworn in to one of the country's most controversial jobs. Rana Bhagwandas is the new acting Chief Justice, but his appointment may not be enough to end a judicial crisis that's closed the courts and brought lawyers onto the streets, as Kamal Haider reports.
Justice Rana Bhagwandas is sworn in as the 20th acting Chief Justice of Pakistan, a senior judge from the country's tiny Hindu minority. The oath was administered under strict security, but options for a settlement are as remote as they were when the crisis over the suspension of the country's Chief Justice boiled over. President General Pervez Musharraf has appealed to the legal fraternity to allow the completion of legal and constitutional process and avoid making a political issue of the ongoing judicial crisis. The country's Minister for State also stresses the need for patience.
Matters should be left to the Supreme Judicial Council to decide, not for people to decide on the streets.
No one is challenging the integrity of the new Chief Justice.
As for the integrity of Rana Bhagwandas is concerned, there is no controversy on that. As far as competency is concerned, we have absolutely no doubt in our mind.
But many here feel the situation may spin out of control. Many lawyers won't accept any solution except the reinstatement of Iftikhar Muhammad Chaudhry, who is vowing to fight on. No one knows what form or shape this crisis is likely to take in the future, but one thing is certain. It has given opponents of President Musharraf a rare chance to get back at him, and they want an end to military rule. The government wants the crisis to be resolved in the confines of the four walls of the country's highest court. But lawyers and politicians are now appealing for support from the masses and may want to settle it on the streets. Kamal Haider, Al-Jazeera, Islamabad.
In Russia, police have arrested hundreds of activists during a protest in the city of Nizhny Novgorod. Scuffles broke out between demonstrators and riot police after the protest was held without permission. Police dragged people off the streets, taking them away in buses to police stations. It's the second major anti-government protest in less than a month.
Thailand has closed one of its main border checkpoints with Myanmar after 2 Thai police officers were detained by pro-junta fighters. The Thai military ordered the closure of the 3 Pagoda Pass checkpoint on the western border to protest against the officers' arrest on Friday. They were detained by the Democratic Karen Buddhist Army after speaking with members of the Karen ethnic rebel group, said the governor of one of the provinces where the checkpoint is located.
2 policemen, both Buddhists, have been shot dead by suspected separatist rebels in the southern Thai town of Narithiwat. Shoppers in the crowded market fled in panic as the shots were fired. The gunmen disappeared into the crowd. More than 2,000 people have died in violent attacks over the past 3 years in Thailand's 3 southernmost Muslim-majority provinces.
Now, a renewed diplomatic push for peace in the Middle East is underway. US Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice in the Egyptian city of Aswan, meeting the leaders of Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. It coincides with the UN Secretary General's first tour of the region. Al Jazeera's Mike Hanna says there are signs the US is reinvigorating its efforts in the region, despite concerns some hold about its motives.
Indeed, yes. The Arab world has been very skeptical about US efforts to renew the peace process under the Bush administration. And the fact that this is her 3rd visit this year is perhaps an indication that there is a new drive within the US to renew attempts to push this peace process forward. Certainly there is an awareness in the US that Arab nations are taking a more leading role in achieving this. Hence, we have the situation of the formation of the quartet. We also, of course, have within coming days an Arab summit in Riyadh, at which once again that Saudi peace plan will be discussed. Now, the issue to get return to that Saudi peace plan, that was put on the back burner for a number of years. The fact that it is now being looked at by the US, the fact that Israel says that there are very interesting points within it, is a very interesting process and showing that there is perhaps an indication that the process can once again get underway. Having said that, though, Condoleezza Rice will be told by the foreign ministers today that this peace plan cannot be tinkered with. It must be accepted in principle in its entirety. Now, we know that the US has problems with that. We know definitely that Israel has problems with that, particularly as the plan calls for a right of return of Palestinian refugees. But the point simply is that the Arab world wants to get something on the table, something that it would regard as acceptable, and certainly that is something that the US has said in recent years that it wants to do. In recent months, it appears to be able to put that opinion, attempting to put that opinion, into more muscular practice.
Our correspondent Mike Hanna there. The United Nations humanitarian chief John Holmes says he's been barred from visiting a refugee camp in Darfur. Holmes is on his first trip to the area and says he was blocked by a military guard from entering the Kasad camp. The Under-Secretary General is on an 11-day trip to Sudan, Chad and the Central African Republic. Well, he joins us on the phone now from Darfur. Mr. Holmes, thanks for joining us. Can you describe to us what happened at the camp?
Yes, I can. I've been having some useful and positive discussions with government ministers in Khartoum and also here in Al Fasher with the local governor. And after that, I was made very welcome. After that, I went to the Khasab camp, which is just near Khartoum. We had notified the authorities in advance that's what we were doing. So we were surprised to find that we were blocked by a checkpoint just outside the camp and told that we were not allowed to enter because we did not have the required written permit, and written permits are not something that we actually require to move around the area. So naturally I was a little bit shocked and upset by this, but we had no option but to comply. I'm hoping to visit 2 more camps tomorrow, and I hope simply that the same problem won't arise.
Mr. Holmes, will you try to go back to the Kasad camp, or will you just leave it there?
We'll leave it there for the Khasab camp because it's too difficult to go back. But we're looking at two different camps, one near Al Fasher and one in Jebel Mara tomorrow. As I say, I'm hopeful that, and I certainly expect that we won't have the same problem. Obviously, it's a difficulty if we do have the same problem. I've come to see what's happening on the ground for myself, what's happening to the internally displaced people in these camps, whom we are helping to keep alive through United Nations and NGO programs and humanitarian programs,